The night was quiet on the edge of the frontier colony. Evan, a poor farmer, sat outside his small wooden house, sharpening his old farming knife. The stars above were cold and endless, stretching across the black sky like silver dust. Life was hard on this planet. The soil was dry, food was little, and every day felt like a struggle. But Evan was used to it. He had no family left, only his farm and his will to survive. That night, however, something changed. A sudden tremor shook the ground. The animals in the pen cried out, restless. Evan rose to his feet, scanning the forest that bordered his land. At first he thought it was thunder, but the sky was clear, no storm in sight. Then the sound came again, heavy, slow, and strange. Something big was moving in the dark woods. The villagers had always warned him about the forest. They spoke of shadows, of creatures not meant to be seen. But Evan had never believed in old stories. He thought people used fear to keep others away from the unknown. Still, tonight the air felt different, colder, heavier. He picked up his lantern and stepped closer to the trees. That was when he saw it. A huge figure moved between the trunks, swaying as if wounded. The ground shivered beneath its steps. Evan's breath caught in his chest. It was no animal. It was no machine. It was a giant. The figure stumbled forward into the moonlight. Evan froze, gripping his lantern tighter. His eyes widened. Before him stood a towering woman, taller than any human could be. Her skin glowed faintly silver under the moon. Her hair, long and wild, shimmered like dark metal threads. Her eyes, huge, glowing and alien, locked on him. She looked weak, her shoulders shaking, her body trembling as if every step was pain. When she tried to speak, the sound came low and broken. One word, soft but sharp, cut through the night air: hunger. Evan's heart raced. The villagers had whispered about her kind, giant warriors from another world, bred for battles humans could never win. They said to never feed them, never show kindness. For once a giantess was fed, she would cling to her feeder forever. She would never leave. Don't feed her. The warning echoed in Evan's mind. Don't feed the alien giantess. The woman staggered closer. She dropped to one knee in front of him, her huge hand pressing into the dirt for balance. The ground cracked beneath her weight. Her breathing was ragged, almost desperate. Her eyes locked onto the small bag of bread Evan carried from his fieldwork. Evan's hands shook. Fear screamed in his head, run, hide, escape. But another voice whispered deep inside, she is not a monster, she is starving. She looked at him not with anger but with pleading, the same way a dying person looks at water. Still, the memory of the villager's warning clawed at him. He remembered old Joran, the village elder, leaning close and whispering, one loaf of bread, boy, and you'll never be free again. The giantess will bind herself to you. She will protect you, yes, but she will own you. You will never walk alone again. Evan swallowed hard. He looked at the bread in his hand, then at the alien woman. Her lips trembled, her chest heaved, and her voice broke the silence once more. Hunger. She was dying. He could see it in her eyes. The choice was his. Turn away and let her starve, or give her food and invite something he could never undo. The lantern flame flickered in the night wind, casting shadows across her silver face. Her eyes glistened with faint light, almost like tears. Evan stepped back, his heart hammering. His mind screamed at him to listen to the warnings, to stay away. But his body did not move. He stood frozen, bread clutched tight, staring at the alien giantess kneeling before him. The air felt heavy, almost alive, as if the stars themselves were waiting for his choice. Slowly, she lifted her hand. Her fingers were massive, yet they shook as if too weak to close. She did not reach for him, only held her hand out, palm open, waiting. A soft whisper escaped her lips. Please. The sound was not monstrous. It was not cruel. It was the voice of someone broken, someone lost. Evan felt his throat tighten. The bread in his hand weighed more than stone. One small act of kindness could change everything. But would it destroy his life? Behind him, the night seemed to hold its breath. The villager's warnings echoed in his head again, louder this time. Don't feed her. Don't feed the alien giantess. Yet in front of him, her glowing eyes begged, her body swayed as if she could fall at any moment. Evan's hand trembled. The bread hovered between him and her. The night was silent. The choice was his, and as the flame flickered, Evan knew that whatever he decided in this moment would bind his fate forever. Evan's hand shook as he held out the bread. The alien giantess leaned forward, her glowing eyes fixed only on the food. Her breath was hot against his skin, heavy and uneven like a storm trapped inside her chest. For a moment he thought she would snatch it from him and crush him without care, but she did not. She waited, her huge hand still open, trembling in weakness. Slowly, Evan placed the bread in her palm. Her hand was massive compared to his, her skin rough yet warm. She lifted the bread carefully as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Then, without hesitation, she devoured it. The sound was raw, desperate. She ate like someone who had not seen food for days, maybe weeks. Every bite was quick, every swallow deep. Crumbs fell around her knees as she finished it in moments. When the last piece was gone, she let out a low sound, something between a sigh and a growl, as though life had returned to her body. Then, her glowing eyes turned back to Evan. For a long, tense moment, neither spoke. Evan felt his chest tighten, fear mixing with something strange. Pity, perhaps, or awe. The villagers had been right. Feeding her had awakened something. He could feel it in the way she looked at him now, not as a stranger, but as something more. Her lips parted and her deep voice broke the silence. Now, I belong to you, Evan's heart pounded. He stepped back, his lantern shaking in his hand. No, he whispered, almost to himself. I don't own you. But the giantess only lowered her head, her dark hair falling like a curtain around her face. She pressed her forehead into the dirt before him, almost like a bow. The ground cracked under her weight. You fed me, she said softly. You chose me. I cannot leave, Evan's breath caught. The warnings echoed in his mind again, sharp and clear. Feed her and she will never let you go. He wanted to run, to pretend this had never happened. Yet when he looked at her, kneeling there with her hands pressed into the earth, he could not see a monster. He saw someone broken, someone desperate. Still, fear crept in. What if she never left his side? What if the villagers turned against him? He turned quickly, almost stumbling, and walked back toward his small house. But as he pushed the wooden door open, a shadow fell across the ground. He looked back. She was following him. Her enormous body moved slowly, carefully, but she did not stop. When he entered his house, she crouched low, curling her giant frame around the tiny building as though protecting it. Her glowing eyes peered through the cracks, watching him. Evan sat on the edge of his bed, gripping his head with both hands. What have I done? He muttered. Outside, he could hear the soft rumble of her breathing. She did not move, did not leave. She stayed close, like a guardian chained by invisible bonds. The night passed slowly. Each time he drifted into uneasy sleep, he woke to the same sound, the deep, steady rhythm of her breath outside his door. By dawn, he no longer wondered if she would leave. He knew. She was bound to him now. When the sun rose, Evan stepped outside. She was still there, crouched low, her massive arms wrapped around his little house as though she feared something might take it away. When he appeared, her head lifted at once, her glowing eyes lighting with strange warmth. Protector, she said, her voice low but certain. Evan shook his head. I'm no protector. I'm just a farmer. But the giantess did not argue. She only lowered her head again, almost like a bow, as if to say she did not care what he called himself. To her, the act of feeding was enough. By midday, word spread in the village. Some had seen her towering form near Evan's farm. Others whispered they had heard her voice calling him protector. Fear grew quickly. Children were told to stay away. Men muttered curses when his name was spoken. The elder came to Evan's door, his face pale. You fool, the elder hissed. You have doomed us. She will never leave you now. Soon her kind will come searching, and when they do, they will burn everything to the ground to get her back. Evan tried to speak, but no words came. He looked back at the giantess, who sat quietly near the fields, her eyes following him like a shadow. She did not seem dangerous now, only devoted. Yet he knew the elder's words held truth. As the night fell again, Evan sat outside his house. The giantess moved closer, curling beside him. Her hand, bigger than his whole body, rested gently near his feet. You are mine, she whispered, her voice a mix of promise and warning. Evan stared at the stars, his heart heavy. He had made his choice, and now he would pay the price. But deep inside, a question burned. Was she truly a curse, or the only ally he might ever have? And as the night grew darker, he felt the weight of her presence pressing close, a silent reminder that his life was no longer his own. Days passed, and the giantess never left Evan's side. Wherever he went, she followed, silent, watchful, and frighteningly loyal. When he plowed the dry soil, she crouched nearby, her glowing eyes following every move. When he fetched water, she carried the full barrels for him as if they weighed nothing. She seemed to understand him without words. Yet her presence drew attention and fear. Children stopped playing near the fields. Men whispered his name with disgust. Women crossed the road when Evan walked by. The villagers called him the Bound One. Some said he was cursed. Others said he was controlling a monster. But Evan knew the truth. He was not in control of her at all. If anything, she was in control of him. At night, when the stars filled the sky, Evan would sit by the fire, trying to think of a way to make her leave. But each time he looked up, he saw her massive shape curled around his home like a living wall. Her silver skin glowed faintly in the darkness. Her eyes half closed, but never fully asleep. She was always watching. Sometimes he heard her whisper softly to herself in a language he did not understand. The words were low, almost like a prayer. And sometimes she would murmur his name. That sound always sent chills down his spine, not because it was frightening, but because it sounded almost tender. One morning, Evan went to the market alone, hoping for peace. But as he walked among the stalls, he could feel people staring. A man shouted, "How long before that thing of yours crushes us all?" Another spat near his boots. "You brought doom to this colony." Evan clenched his jaw and said nothing. But when he returned home, he found the giantess waiting at the edge of the woods, her eyes glowing with concern. She could smell the fear on him. "Who hurt you?" she asked quietly. Her voice was deep, almost like distant thunder. "No one," Evan said quickly. "They're just scared." She tilted her head, her long dark hair falling like a curtain.
"Fear is for the weak," she said.
"I will protect you." That night, Evan awoke to the sound of footsteps, heavy, slow, approaching from the forest. He stepped outside and froze. A group of men from the village stood there holding torches and rifles. The elder was among them. "Evan," the old man said sternly, "we can't live like this. The giantess must leave. Tonight." Before Evan could answer, a shadow rose behind his house. The giantess stood to her full height, her glowing eyes narrowing, her silver skin gleaming in the torchlight. She looked like a goddess of war, terrifying and beautiful. The men stepped back in fear. "Monster," one shouted, but before anyone could move, the giantess reached down and placed her hand gently in front of Evan, shielding him. "Leave him," she said, her voice calm but cold. "He is mine." The torches flickered as the wind shifted. No one dared to shoot. The elder swallowed hard, then turned and motioned the men to retreat. "You see?" he said over his shoulder. "She already owns you." When they left, Evan turned to her, his face pale. "You can't keep doing this," he said. "They'll never accept you." Her eyes softened for a moment. "I don't need them," she said quietly. "I only need you." Evan didn't know what to say. Her words carried warmth and danger at the same time. He could see she meant them. And deep down, he feared she would destroy anyone who tried to take him away. Days turned into weeks. Evan tried to keep his distance, but the giantess never allowed it. When he went to the river, she followed. When he entered the forest, she walked behind, her massive feet leaving craters in the soil. Sometimes she hummed a low tune, strange, alien, but soothing. Other times she sat in silence, watching him with those glowing eyes. She never asked for food again. It was as if feeding her once had filled her hunger forever, but left her with a new hunger he could not understand. One evening, Evan found her gazing at the stars, her expression distant and sad. "What are you looking at?" he asked softly. "My world," she said. "They took everything from me. My people, my freedom, my name." Evan frowned. "Your name?" She looked at him then, and her eyes glimmered like silver fire. "They called me a weapon. I have no name." "But you may give me one," he hesitated. Then quietly he said, "Lyra." She repeated it softly. "Lyra," as if tasting the word. A faint smile touched her lips. "Lyra," she said again. "It sounds alive." For the first time, Evan saw something human in her expression. Not the fierce protector, not the bound giantess, but someone lonely, lost and fragile beneath her strength. That night, as he tried to sleep, he heard her whisper through the walls. "Lyra," and Evan. He closed his eyes, heart pounding. Somewhere deep inside, he realized that the bond between them was growing stronger, not from magic, but from something far more dangerous, trust. And in the distance, unseen by both, a red light blinked among the stars. A signal beacon, sent from far away. Someone had found Lyra's trail. The red dawn rose slowly over the colony. Evan was already awake, his hands buried in the soil, trying to focus on farming. But his thoughts were not on the crops. They were on her, on Lyra. She was sitting at the edge of the field, her massive knees drawn close, her glowing eyes watching him in silence. She had not left him since the night he gave her a name. Every time he looked at her, questions burned inside him. Who was she really? Where had she come from? And why had she been so broken when he first found her? That morning, Evan could no longer hold back. He wiped the dirt from his hands and stood before her. "Lyra," he said softly, "I need to know. Why were you in the forest? What happened to you?" For a long moment, she said nothing. Her huge hands tightened on her knees. Then slowly, she lifted her head. Her glowing eyes were filled with shadows of memory. "My kind were not born free," she said at last. Her voice was low, heavy, like stone breaking under weight. "We were made." Evan frowned. "Made?" She nodded slowly. "Bred in tanks, shaped by war, born to fight for masters who saw us only as weapons. They gave us strength, size, and hunger, but they took everything else." Her gaze turned to the horizon. "I was taken from my cradle before I could even speak. They placed iron on my wrists, numbers on my skin.
No name, no family.
Only commands: fight, kill, obey." Evan's throat tightened. He had seen cruelty before, but never on this scale. Lyra's voice grew softer. "When I grew too strong, they feared me. I began to question them. I began to refuse. And so they hunted me." Evan stepped closer. "Hunted?" Her eyes flickered like dying stars. "Yes, my people do not forgive rebellion. To them, I am a traitor. To them, I must be destroyed. I ran, I hid, I starved, until—" She paused and looked down at him. "Until you fed me." The words sent a chill down Evan's spine. He had thought he saved her life with that bread. But now he understood. Feeding her was more than kindness. It was a binding. It had chained her to him. Evan swallowed hard. "And now? What happens now?" She leaned closer, her shadow falling over him. "Now I am yours. By the law of my kind, one who feeds us becomes our master. But," she hesitated, her voice trembling for the first time, "I do not see you as master. I see you as anchor. Without you, I would fall back into the darkness. With you, I live." Evan's chest tightened. He had never wanted power over anyone. But hearing her words, he felt the weight of a bond stronger than chains. That night, as the stars rose, Evan and Lyra sat by the fire. She spoke again, telling him pieces of her past. She spoke of burning battlefields where she had stood against armies, of chains so heavy they bent her back, of nights when she had begged for death only to be denied. At one point, her voice broke. "Do you know what it means to starve on purpose? To let hunger eat you because you would rather die than fight again?" Evan said nothing. His throat was too tight, his chest too heavy. He simply sat there listening, and for the first time he saw her not as a monster, not as a giantess, but as a prisoner who had clawed her way to freedom. But their peace did not last. In the distance, a strange hum broke the night. Evan rose quickly, scanning the horizon. Lyra stiffened, her glowing eyes narrowing. "They are here," she whispered. From the sky, a ship descended, its engines burning red. It landed beyond the forest, shaking the ground. Lights flashed between the trees. Shadows moved. Evan's stomach turned to ice. "Who are they?" Lyra's face hardened. "Hunters." The word cut through the night like a blade. "Hunters." Evan repeated. "They come for me," she said, rising to her full height. "They will not stop until I am in chains again, or dead." Evan felt his blood run cold. This was what the villagers had warned about. This was why they feared her, because her past had followed her here. And now danger had come to his doorstep. Lyra looked down at him, her voice steady but sad. "You gave me life, Evan, but now you must choose. Stay with me and face war, or run and leave me to die." Evan's breath caught. He looked into her glowing eyes and saw fear, not for herself but for him. She was willing to fight, to die, but she did not want him harmed. In that moment, he realized the truth. Feeding her had not chained her to him. It had chained him to her. And as the hunters' lights moved closer through the forest, Evan knew his life would never be the same again. The night was alive with strange light. Red beams flashed through the trees as the hunters moved closer. Their ship, dark and sharp like a blade, sat behind the forest, its engines still glowing. The air smelled of smoke and burning metal. Every step of the soldiers echoed against the ground, heavy and sure, like predators closing in. Evan stood frozen at the edge of his farm, lantern in hand. His heart pounded in his chest so hard he thought it would burst. He had never seen soldiers like these before. Their armor was black, their helmets smooth and faceless, their rifles glowing with blue fire. They did not look human. They looked like shadows with weapons. Beside him, Lyra rose to her full height. Her glowing eyes narrowed, her long hair blowing in the night wind. She did not move, but her body was tense like a bowstring ready to snap. "They have come," she said softly, her voice like thunder rolling in the distance. "They will not leave without me." Evan swallowed hard. "Then we hide. We run," she shook her head slowly. "No, Evan, they will chase. They will burn this land until there is nothing left. They always do." Her words made his stomach twist. He thought of the village, of the children, the families. If the hunters wanted Lyra, they would not stop at his farm. They would take everything. The torches of the villagers appeared behind him. Men had come again, led by the elder. Their faces were pale, their voices sharp. "Evan," the elder shouted, "give her to them." "Do you want us all dead?" "Surrender her before it's too late." The crowd shouted in fear and anger. Some carried weapons, though their hands shook. Others pushed forward, ready to drag Evan aside if they had to. Lyra growled low, her voice vibrating in the ground. She crouched protectively in front of Evan, her massive hand planted in the soil. "No one touches him," she hissed. The villagers stumbled back at her voice. Some fell to their knees, trembling. The elder's face twisted. "She will kill us all. Can't you see it? This is our doom." Evan's breath came fast. He looked at the villagers, then at Lyra. He felt torn apart. But then the hunters' voices cut through the air. "Run away," one shouted, his voice metallic and cruel. "By order of the High Command, surrender yourself or be destroyed." The hunters stepped into the clearing. Their rifles glowed brighter, aimed straight at Lyra. Their leader, taller than the rest, raised a black staff that pulsed with energy. Lyra did not move. She only straightened to her full, terrifying height, towering over all of them. Her glowing eyes blazed like twin suns. "I will never go back," she growled. The leader pointed his staff at her. "Then you and your feeder will die together." The word feeder struck Evan like a blow. His blood turned cold. They knew about him. They knew she was bound to him. The villagers cried out, some dropping their weapons and running. Others stayed frozen in fear. The elder fell to his knees, covering his face. Evan stood in the middle of it all, trapped between the hunters, the villagers, and the giantess who refused to leave his side. His mind screamed at him to run, but his feet did not move. His heart told him the truth. There was no escape. Lyra's voice broke the silence. "Stay behind me, Evan." Before he could answer, blue fire lit the night. The hunters fired. Beams of energy shot across the clearing, tearing through soil and wood. Trees exploded in sparks. The villagers screamed and scattered, but Lyra did not fall. She raised her arms, her skin glowing with strange energy. The blast struck her, but she stood firm, shielding Evan with her massive body. Her roar shook the ground. Evan's heart raced. He had never seen anything like it. She was not just strong. She was unstoppable, but he also saw the pain in her face. Each blast burned her skin, left glowing marks across her silver flesh. She could not hold forever. The hunters advanced step by step, their weapons blazing. Evan's hands clenched. He was only a farmer. He had no weapon, no power. Yet watching her fight for him, he felt something inside him change. Fear twisted into resolve. He grabbed a heavy farming tool, a long iron spear used for digging soil, and stood beside her. His arms shook, but his voice was steady. "You're not alone, Lyra," he said. She looked at him in shock even as another blast struck her shoulder. Her glowing eyes softened for a breath. Then she roared again, swinging her massive hand at the nearest soldier, sending him flying through the trees. The battle had begun. The villagers fled into the night, leaving the farm behind. The hunters closed in, their ship glowing brighter in the forest. Evan stood with his iron tool, heart hammering, while the giantess fought like a storm. And as the ground shook under the clash of fire and strength, Evan realized something terrifying and certain. This fight was not just for her freedom anymore, it was for both of their lives. The clearing burned with light and smoke. Blue fire from the hunters' rifles cut through the night, scorching trees, tearing holes in the soil. Sparks flew, shadows danced, and the cries of frightened villagers echoed as they ran into the hills. The farm was no longer quiet land, it had become a battlefield. Lyra roared as another blast struck her chest. The impact pushed her back, but she did not fall. Her silver skin glowed where the energy burned, cracks of light crawling across her flesh. Yet still she stood, her huge frame planted firmly in front of Evan. Every shot that should have killed him struck her instead. Evan gripped his iron farming tool like a spear. His arms trembled, but his feet refused to move. He had never fought a soldier, never faced war. Yet here he was, standing shoulder to shoulder with a giantess bred for battle. Fear threatened to drown him, but courage burned hotter in his chest. One of the hunters rushed forward, rifle raised. Lyra's hand swept through the air like a storm wind, striking the soldier so hard his armored body cracked against a boulder. Another aimed at Evan. The shot blazed toward him, too fast to dodge. But Lyra moved again, her massive arm curling around him, shielding him from the blast. "Stay close," she growled. Evan's jaw tightened. "I told you, I'm not leaving." Her glowing eyes flickered with something fierce, something almost tender before she turned back to the enemy. The hunters regrouped, their leader raising the black staff. Energy pulsed from it, stronger than the rifles. A bolt of red fire struck Lyra's shoulder, forcing her to her knees. Her roar shook the earth. "Lyra!" Evan cried, rushing to her side. She gritted her teeth, silver blood dripping onto the soil. "I will not break." The hunters advanced, confident now. Their leader's voice rang out, cold and merciless. "Surrender, runaway. You cannot resist. The feeder is weak and you are wounded. End this." But Lyra only laughed, a deep, broken laugh. "Weak? You fear me because I am not weak. And now, I am not alone." Evan felt a chill run down his spine. He knew she meant him. Somehow in this madness she saw him not as a burden but as her partner. The hunters fired again. Evan ducked low, rolling into the dirt. Instinct took over. He leapt up, thrusting his iron spear into the leg of one soldier. The blow was clumsy but strong, driving the hunter to his knees. Lyra seized the chance. Her massive fist slammed down, crushing the enemy into the soil. The battlefield raged with chaos. Blasts lit the night, shaking the ground. Evan fought like a man possessed, swinging, dodging, stabbing. For every soldier that struck at him, Lyra was there, pulling him from danger, her body absorbing the fire meant for him. At one point, she caught him as he stumbled, her giant hand curling around his body. "Evan," she whispered, her voice ragged but steady. "I was made to fight alone, but with you I fight for something more." Before he could answer, another shot struck her back. She roared, turning, her eyes blazing like fire. With one furious strike, she smashed the ground, sending a shockwave through the clearing. Several hunters were thrown back, their armor cracking under the force. But the leader still stood. His staff glowed brighter, red energy pulsing like a heart of flame. He raised it high, aiming at Evan. Time slowed. Evan's body froze. He saw the fire building, the deadly light ready to consume him. But then Lyra moved. Her huge body shifted like lightning. She leapt between Evan and the staff, taking the full blast into her chest. The explosion shook the farm, ripping through wood, stone, and soil. Evan was thrown to the ground, ears ringing, vision blurred. When the smoke cleared, he saw her, kneeling, her body glowing with deep cracks of silver light, her breath ragged. But she was still alive. The leader's voice trembled with fury. "Impossible." Lyra rose slowly, towering over them, her voice echoing like thunder. "You will not take me. Not while he breathes." Her massive hand slammed down on the leader, knocking the staff from his grasp. The earth split beneath the blow. Evan scrambled to his feet, seizing the weapon before the hunter could reclaim it. It burned hot in his hands, but he lifted it high. "Go!" Evan shouted, driving the staff into the ground. A burst of red energy exploded outward, knocking the hunters back into the trees. The forest lit up with fire, the sound of shattered armor ringing in the air. Silence fell at last. Smoke drifted across the broken field. The hunters lay scattered, defeated, their ship flickering with damage from the shockwave. Evan dropped the staff, chest heaving. His arms shook, his whole body aching. He turned to Lyra. She stood over him, her silver skin glowing with wounds, her eyes burning with fierce devotion. She lowered herself, pressing her forehead to the ground before him. "Evan," she whispered, "you chose to stand. Now the galaxy will know. They will come again, stronger, but I will never leave your side." Evan stared at her, his breath caught in his throat. She was no longer just a giantess bound by hunger. She was his shield, his storm, his impossible ally. And as the night grew quiet again, one truth echoed louder than all others. They had won this battle, but the war was only beginning. The battlefield was silent now, covered in smoke and ash. The bodies of the hunters lay broken among the trees, their black armor cracked, their glowing rifles dark. Evan stood in the middle of the ruined field, his chest rising and falling, his hands raw from gripping the iron spear. The night was quiet, yet his heart pounded like drums. Beside him, Lyra knelt. Her silver skin was torn and glowing where the blasts had struck her. Lines of light spread across her arms and chest like molten cracks in stone. Yet her eyes still burned bright. She had stood through it all, every blast, every strike to shield him. Evan stumbled closer. "You're hurt." She looked down at him, her voice deep but soft. "Pain means nothing, you live." "That is enough," but Evan shook his head. "No, Lyra, that's not enough. You can't keep bleeding for me." For a moment she was silent. Then slowly, her massive hand lowered until her palm rested near his feet. "Do you not understand? You gave me life. You gave me a name. Without you I am nothing. With you, I am free." Her words cut into him deeper than any blade. He had once believed she was chained to him by hunger, by the law of her kind. But now he saw the truth. She stayed not because she had to, but because she chose to. In the distance, the hunter's ship sparked with dying energy. Flames licked its hull, smoke rising into the night sky. But above, the stars shifted, and Evan felt a chill. Far away, lights moved in the darkness, too many, too bright. Another fleet. More hunters. "They will come," Lyra whispered, her gaze fixed on the sky. Stronger, endless. "They will not stop until I am taken, or you are dead." Evan's stomach twisted. He thought of the villagers already terrified, hiding in the hills. He thought of the farm, his quiet life, now gone. His world was already changed forever. "What do we do?" he asked, his voice low. Lyra turned her glowing eyes on him. There was no fear in them, only a fierce, unshakable devotion. "We stand. We fight, together." He wanted to argue, to say he was just a farmer, not a warrior. But deep inside he knew the truth. He had already chosen. The moment he placed bread in her hand, he had tied his fate to hers. The villagers slowly returned at dawn, their faces pale, their eyes wide at the ruined battlefield. They saw Evan standing with the giantess, her huge form wrapped in light and shadow. Some fell to their knees in fear. Others whispered in awe. "She saved us," one child said softly, peeking from behind her mother. The elder stepped forward, his voice trembling. "You have bound us to war, boy. Because of you we are marked. The galaxy will come for her, and for us all." Evan met the old man's eyes, his voice steady. "Then let them come. We're not as weak as they think," the villagers murmured, some angry, some uncertain. But all of them looked at the giantess with new eyes, not only fear but also respect. They had seen her fight, seen her protect. They could not deny what she was. That night Evan sat by the fire once more. Lyra curled around the small house like a wall of living stone, her glowing eyes watching the horizon. The wounds across her body pulsed faintly, but she did not complain. Evan looked at her, his voice soft. "Why me, Lyra? Out of all the worlds you could have fallen to, why mine?" She tilted her head, her massive form lowering closer. Her breath warmed the air around him. "Because you fed me. Because you saw me. Others would have left me to die. You gave me more than food. You gave me worth." He fell silent, staring into the flames. He had never thought of himself as special. Just a poor farmer struggling to survive. But to her he was more. The night deepened. The stars above glimmered, and among them the faint red lights of distant ships grew brighter. Evan's heart pounded, but he did not look away. Lyra's voice came again, low and steady. "The galaxy will come. But I am yours now, and I will never let you go." Her words wrapped around him like armor. He felt fear, yes, but also something else. Strength. He looked up at her, his voice firm. "Then we face it together." The giantess smiled faintly, a rare, fragile thing. She lowered her hand, and without hesitation, Evan stepped onto her palm. She lifted him high, close to her glowing eyes. For a moment, the broken farm below, the ruined land, the frightened village, none of it mattered. In that moment, it was just the two of them. A farmer and a runaway giantess, bound forever by a single act of kindness. And above them, the stars shifted as the shadow of a fleet began to descend. The true war had not yet begun. But neither of them would ever stand alone again.